The sea hides England, but it will not protect her forever.
May 1803. Revolutions fade, but the old rivalry awakens once more.
Revolutions fade, but the old rivalry awakens once more.
By order of the First Consul, you will come with us. No delays.
This single abduction would echo through every royal court in Europe.
My death will weigh on Napoleon's crown heavier than he imagines.
The deed was done. Europe recoiled in shock.
This murder cannot stand. France has crossed a line.
Russia turns its gaze toward vengeance.
Sire, Britain seeks alliance. Austria waits, uncertain.
Thus begins the forging of the Third Coalition.
We pay the gold. Others must shed the blood.
Austria weighs peace against pride.
We are not ready!
Delay this war before it destroys us!
Yet Austria chooses war against better judgment. All this, waiting on the tides in the British fleet.
Great invasion that never came.
A great invasion that never came.
If our guns could cross the water, London would tremble.
The Royal Navy stands watchful, unyielding.
Russia commits its vast strength to the alliance. Imperial Winter, the headman.
Man sagt, die Franzosen sind schon hinter uns.
But the trap was already sprung.
Hitler est encerclé. Il n'y a pas d'échappatoire.
Napoleon's genius of maneuver leaves no exit.
Möge Österreich mir meine Schuld vergeben.
30,000 men lay down their arms without a major battle.
War rewards movement, not hesitation.
The road to Vienna now lay wide open.
The city is ours, but it feels like a tomb.
The Habsburg court had fled, leaving a city full of fear.
Vienna is secured for the Emperor!
But victory in the capital meant nothing without victory in the field.
Tomorrow, soldier, your glory will shine forever.
France prepares for the greatest test of the war.
Sire, the high ground is theirs, but we can take it.
The day that would define an empire was about to begin.
Push forward! The French will break before our combined might!
The Allies believed Napoleon cornered and rushed to finish him.
They mistook careful placement for weakness, just as Napoleon intended.
Let them take the heights. When they descend, strike with everything.
The Emperor crafted weakness as bait.
Vive l'Empereur!
Vive l'Empereur!
His presence alone strengthened them more than any supply.
Tout est croisé cela. Durant là, indice à l'Empereur, vous trouvez que tout pleine sans rêve.
His presence alone strengthened them more than any supply.
Vive l'Empereur!
Soldiers, on this field we will carve our legend.
A calm before a storm that would shake Europe.
But this sunrise would belong to Napoleon forever.
Now, let them come down.
The trap began to spring.
Every French delay was deliberate.
The French retreat was no panic. It was precision.
Sire, the heights are lightly held. One push, and they're ours.
The Emperor had waited for this very moment.
Marshal Soult! Take the heights!
The battle turned in a single command.
Keep moving! The heights decide this day!
The Allies fought fiercely to hold their advantage.
Momentum shifted, irrevocably.
They're running!
With the high ground claimed, the battle was effectively won.
Impossible! How did they move so fast?
Their plans shattered. The Allies now fought only to escape.
Aim for the ice, not the men!
The pawns became a deadly trap.
By day's end, the coalition was in ruins.
This day will be called mine. And Francis.
Austerlitz sealed Napoleon's legend.
But even in triumph, new storms gathered beyond Europe's horizon.
We cannot stand idle as France reshapes Europe in its image.
Prussia's pride, bound to memories of Frederick the Great, demanded confrontation.
Our army is the legacy of Frederick. We march with his spirit.
But Prussia prepared for a war Napoleon had already mastered.
While Prussia marched in pride, Napoleon studied their movements with the calm precision of a surgeon.
So, the Prussians choose war. Then we will give them such a blow that they will not forget it.
We move at first light. Speed, precision, and fire. These will break Prussia's pride.
In that moment, the Emperor set a campaign in motion that would shatter the old Prussian order forever.
Sire, scouts report Prussian patrols only hours ahead.
Good. Let them feel our breath before they see our bayonets.
Ahead lay the proud armies of Prussia, unprepared for the whirlwind rolling toward them.
We must fall upon them before they know where we are.
The Grande Armée advanced with a speed that defied belief, 40 miles a day, as if carried by the Emperor's will alone.
Forward! Put them from the trees! Push them back!
These small clashes were only sparks before the inferno to come.
Prussian, il nous a dit.
The first shots of the Prussian campaign tore through the Saxon woods.
Hold on! Keep the line!
We strike in 3 places at once.
Speed. Speed is the blade. With a single gesture, the Emperor widened his advance into a lethal flanking sweep.
We march farther, faster, and strike where they least expect.
The scythe had been swung, and Prussia stood directly in its path.
Impossible! No army can move this fast! No army!
Warnings went unheard. Pride had become Prussia's blindfold.
French are not coming. They are already here.
Prussia, built on memory and pride, realized too late that the past could not save it.
Qu'ils sentent le tonnerre de l'empereur.
Il inaugurera dévala comme une tempête.
Implacable, précise, irrésistible.
The French advance could not be checked. The Prussian screen shattered like glass beneath a hammer.
Vive l'empereur! Where are our reserves? Where are our guns? Why can no one give me a straight report?
Reports poured in faster than command could make sense of them. Every moment brought new contradictions.
God help us. They're closer than we thought.
On the heights above Jena, the French arrived unseen, silently shaping the night before the slaughter.
God help us. They're already inside the fog.
They did not climb the heights. The heights were already theirs.
There lies our battle, hidden in the fog.
In a single glance, he saw their mistake, and the victory it promised.
Deploy the corps at once. We attack when the sun breaks.
At dawn, the heights belonged to Napoleon. And soon, so would the battle.
Pour l'empereur.
There were not a million of the room.
They fired barrels of sand. And watched their horses maneuver a balanced for the morning in two.
Forward! Through the smoke! Keep your intervals tight!
Blinded by smoke, broken by fire, Prussia faltered, and the French came on like a rising tide.
With disciplined weight, the French descended the heights to strike the valley below.
Order surge down the hillside! Toward an enemy slipping into confusion!
Of the Anafer, the Moscow occurs midden. Commander was struggling by favorite and power. An off movement was yet.
Keep firing!
Yet through the thunder and smoke, the French columns marched on, relentless.
Steady now. Wait for the signal. Then strike hard.
Across the field, Prussian horsemen braced for the impact they knew must come.
Across the field, Prussian horsemen braced for the impact they knew must come.
Steel met resolve as Prussian horsemen set their lances for the storm.
Force and speed shattered the Uhlans, opening the flank for the French advance.
Disjointed and stretched thin, the Prussian center struggled to hold.
Keep them pinned! Don't let them form up!
With steady pressure and disciplined fire, the French center pressed its advantage.
Give me Caesar! Look up ahead!
Every report carried worse news, tightening around the Prussian command like a vice.
Form here! Here, quickly, tighten the line!
Command faltered as the French tide rolled closer, leaving Prussia struggling to hold its ground.
Hold his ground! Keep the French from turning us!
Across the haze, the French columns advanced, intent on breaking the Prussian flank.
Step by step, the French pressed upward, forcing the Prussian flank to bend under unyielding pressure.
Stand fast! Hold the... We can't hold it! Abandon the gun!
With the ridge secured, the battlefield opened before the French.
Extra line! By God! Hold!
At last, the Prussian line could no longer bear the pressure.
Fall back now! We're being overrun!
With the center broken, the Battle of Jena tipped irreversibly in Napoleon's favor.
The moment has come. Commit the Guard.
When the Guard moved, all France moved with them.
Advance! Let them see who ends this!
With the Guard advancing, the battle was no longer in doubt.
Fall back! Save yourself! Get off the field!
What began as retreat quickly dissolved into a rout.
Turn the guns! Fire! Fire! Or we're lost!
By nightfall, the Prussian army no longer existed as a fighting force.
Maintenant, je séfie. Oh, je montre.
When the guns fell silent, the battlefield told its own story.
Tomorrow, Europe will understand what happened here.
Jena was over, but its echoes would shape Europe for years to come.
With the Prussian army shattered, the road to the capital lay open.
We will move fast. Speed will finish what victory began.
In the days that followed, Napoleon's army swept east, toward Berlin, and toward dominance over Europe.
Berlin is taken. Order will be maintained.
With Berlin occupied, Prussia lay broken, its power transferred to Napoleon's hands.
It is finished. The city is theirs.
Berlin, the heart of Prussia, opened its gates without resistance.
They believed Prussia unmovable. History favors those who move.
Victory at Jena had given Napoleon more than a city. It had given him command of Europe's future.
From here, we decide who trades.
In Berlin, Napoleon stood at the height of his power, master of armies, markets, and fate itself.
England will be struck not by armies, but by isolation.
From Berlin came a declaration meant to choke Britain's economy and reshape Europe.
All commerce with the British Isles is hereby forbidden.
The continental system turned Europe into a battlefield of trade, one that would test loyalty, patience, and power.
If we defy him, we invite war. If we obey, we bleed slowly.
Across Europe, allies and subjects alike weighed obedience against survival.
Russia will not starve to weaken England.
The decree fractured Europe, binding it tighter to Napoleon, even as resistance quietly took shape.
Napoleon believes Europe bends forever. Winter teaches otherwise.
Russia did not challenge Napoleon openly, but it did not forget.
Then come farther. Distance will fight for us.
For now, Russia waited, and in that waiting lay the shadow of Napoleon's greatest trial.
The killers may be closed, but the seas are ours.
Cut off from Europe's ports, Britain turned to the one domain Napoleon could not command.
If Europe shuts its doors, we'll trade with the world.
While Napoleon ruled the continent, Britain ruled the oceans, and survived.
They march like masters, but this land remembers.
In Spain, French rule ignited not obedience, but revolt.
The Peninsular War had begun. A war without rules, without mercy, and without end.
We advance only when the ground favors us. Spain will bleed, but we will endure.
Into the chaos of Spain stepped a commander who fought not with brilliance, but with patience.
Let the French chase shadows. We choose where they die.
Where Napoleon sought decisive battles, Wellington prepared for a war of survival.
We hold. We let them break themselves.
In Spain, Wellington fought a different war, one of patience, terrain, and time.
Speed decides wars. The enemy must never breathe.
Napoleon sought decision through movement, overwhelming Europe with speed and force.
From Lisbon to Warsaw, Europe moves by my will.
By 1810, Napoleon ruled an empire unmatched in Europe's history.
They will follow, as long as strength remains.
Yet, at its greatest reach, the Empire faced its greatest risk.
Sire, every message from St. Petersburg delays, and every delay hardens them.
Between France and Russia lay distance, winter, and the future of an empire.
Russia breaks the blockade and dares to call it necessity.
In Russia, obedience gave way to resistance disguised as diplomacy.
Mon maire avec l'Europe marcher ensemble comme ça.
Napoleon assembled the largest army Europe had ever seen.
Soldiers, you march to end this war.
More than 500,000 men stepped forward toward Russia.
So, this is Russia.
On the banks of the Niemen, Napoleon carried his empire into Russia.
There can be no turning back.
With that crossing, the fate of the Grand Army was sealed.
The distance began to speak.
Russia did not rush to meet them.
Better ash than chains.
The Russians would not defend the land. They would deny it.
There is nothing left. Nothing.
With every mile east, the land itself became an enemy.
They were here yesterday. Now, nothing.
The Russian army refused battle, trading space for time.
Keep them marching.
They retreat because they fear us.
But every retreat pulled the French deeper into emptiness.
Fire! Do not let the guns go!
At Smolensk, war finally found a city.
On nous prendre la bière, mais côtés armés.
Smolensk burned, but the Russian army lived.
They are standing. At last.
Near Borodino, the Russian retreat ended.
They defend Moscow here.
Ahead lay Borodino, the bloodiest day Napoleon would ever fight.
Tomorrow decides everything. For the first time, distance had followed Napoleon into the night.
They will stand. And so must we.
As dawn approached, Europe held its breath.
Leurs deux armées préparées destroyer son autre.
Voilà. Pont-d'Oeuvre la prononce.
We allow this Borodino began with thunder.
And it would not stop.
Sire, one push. The Guard will finish it.
For the first time in battle, certainty eluded Napoleon.
Chief! Take the gun!
By afternoon, the Great Redoubt was taken, but nothing was decided.
For the Sire, one push. The Guard will finish it.
For the first time in battle, certainty eluded Napoleon.
I will not risk them.
At Borodino! Victory slipped through hesitation!
So much blood for so little ground.
The road to Moscow lay open, but the price had been large.
After Borodino, the Grand Army marched on, not in triumph, but necessity.
A little longer.
Ahead lay Moscow, the prize Napoleon believed would end the war.
Where is everyone? Napoleon entered Moscow and found no one to surrender.
They will come.
Moscow did not greet its conqueror. It waited.
Moscow burned. Not by accident, but by design.
This is madness.
The prize Napoleon sought was destroyed before it could be claimed.
They will send terms.
Napoleon waited for a surrender that would never come.
Winter comes early here. With every silent day, Moscow tightened its grip.
It was not meant to come yet.
Winter announced itself without warning.
This changes everything.
From that moment on, time no longer favored the invader.
We should have left sooner.
The retreat from Moscow had begun, but winter would not wait.
We leave Moscow.
After weeks of waiting, the truth could no longer be delayed.
Napoleon left Moscow as he had entered it, alone.
Forward.
The march back began, not as a retreat, but as an escape. Cold killed more men than the enemy ever could.
Keep moving. Do not stop.
Winter tightened its grip and would not let go.
The Cossacks turned retreat into pursuit.
They cut at the edges, and the army bleeds. We march tonight. No delays.
Hold the line!
They struck not to destroy, but to weaken, again and again.
Give it to him.
The Grand Army no longer marched. It endured.
I would trade my musket for bread.
Food vanished, and hunger ruled.
For the Berezina.
Ahead lay the river. Behind came the enemy.
We cross here.
At the Berezina, survival would demand speed and sacrifice.
Hold the bridge at all costs. Thousands would cross, thousands would not.
Équerre. Mais au quel coste?
Le Berezina était Kerd. Mais l'armée était Guermel.
We must reach France.
From the Berezina onward, Napoleon would fight not for conquest, but for survival.
Soldiers, if any man wishes to kill his emperor, here I am.
An army does not forget its master.
I return, not to conquer, but to defend France.
Europe answered his return with war.
The ground will dry.
At Waterloo, time itself opposed him.
All is lost.
Waterloo ended the age of Napoleon.
This time, there will be no return.
Exile was no longer temporary. It was permanent.
The conqueror of Europe was reduced to an island.
So, this is my kingdom now.
The conqueror of Europe was reduced to an island.
France will not forget me.
Nor had Napoleon finished with France.
History will decide what I was.
He reshaped Europe and died far from it.